Welcome to It Begins With Us, the podcast about domestic violence abuse. It is our mission to help anyone in a domestic violence situation. We started this podcast
as a safe space for survivors to tell their stories.
Completely confidential.
We can disguise your voice.
You can be off camera, and we're here to listen. Let's get started. Welcome back to It Begins With Us. We are on episode 14, and today we have our lovely guest, Sandi.
Hello.
She's been with us as a,
1614 board member.
Yes.
Since November of last year. And she's our host for today.
Yeah, and she's going to be our host. So we're excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. I know we've had, little bits and pieces of your story, but we've never heard, your whole story.
The whole story.
So we're excited to have you today.
I'm really nervous, but also excited to share. No one really knew what was going on. I hit it pretty well, and like we had touched base before, I never considered myself as being in a domestic violent relationship in any of my relationships. And the more I looked back on who I dated and then who I dated before them, and I kind of did that chain reaction backwards, trying to figure out why was what was happening to
pattern.
me happening to me.
Yeah.
I still never thought that it was affecting me, but it was affecting me in different ways all the time. So.
Yeah. Can I ask how long it's been since you've been away from this relationship?
It's been 5 years.
Okay.
Almost 6. So since 2020 is when we split up. June of 2020.
Okay. I always like to ask that question.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of women think that they're not strong or that they're not ready, and so they see me when I left. I'm like, it's already been 15 years. The first one, the second one, it wasn't as much abuse. It was more mental and emotional. So, and it took me 3 years to talk about it. But they think that they're not strong or that they're not worthy of telling their story, and so it just takes time.
It does take time. It's kind of scary too, because I didn't ever think I would share. That was kind of something that I thought I was moved past. But listening to the podcast, and it started in October, and hearing the stories and actually realizing, having it kind of click and be actually, you really did have the blinders on, and I was living it, and I didn't even know that I was living it. And so it is scary to share, and actually my family doesn't really know. And so my brother actually was like, sis, I didn't know that was actually happening. And I was like, yeah, I didn't know that I was actually ever going to tell anyone that was happening. So I was like, here we go. Because there's something about, I think it needs to be shared. I think it'll be a healing point for me. And then also having gone through counseling with it, sometimes even with as ugly as it ended out being, I did go to counseling, and that I say that all the time, that saved my life. No matter how angry I was going into that, that it was me and why do I have to be here? It really did save me in many, many different ways. Yeah. And so I'm glad that it did happen. And now knowing that I was going to be coming on here and opening up a little bit, I kind of wanted to reopen up my book that I haven't actually looked at it since 2020, since we finished it. And so it was kind of cool to look back and read some of the different things that they go through, and the some of the projects that they have you do, and some of the questions that I was not able to answer for whatever reason at that time, and now having kind of thumbed through the pages, I'm excited to go back in there and finish it. And I think
finally things have changed.
Yeah, things have definitely changed since then.
Good.
And so it'll be really cool to see what was affecting me back then and what were boundaries, because what was really cool is they do teach you some kind of basic coping skills as far as setting boundaries and knowing what is an acceptable. And so that was something I guess I was maybe a little bit naive about in the beginning, where I was like, oh, I know what that is, but until I like sat down and had to put pen to paper, I didn't. It was nice to go through those steps.
Yeah.
So
I bet seeing that growth was like a really proud thing for you, though, because like how you are now, and then to be in that like early stages and reread that and to see it on paper.
Yeah,
it was just like a really. I bet that felt really awesome.
It felt really, really cool, and some of the like it was really weird to see what I couldn't answer. Some of the questions I couldn't answer for whatever reason, because I didn't think that it affected me. But then maybe it was because it was just things that you had pushed down so much, because it did just become an everyday thing. I was coping in my ways and not really seeing what was truly going on, and something that, listening back to every survivor that we've had on the podcast and all of the information that we have had, something that we've all said is that somehow they are able to isolate you away from your friends and your family. And I didn't even realize that had happened. Like, I had allowed that to happen.
Because they treat you so good in the beginning that all you want to be is just only around them.
Yeah. And it was nuts, because everything, I had known him for several years before that, but he was always in a relationship, and me being a bartender, I didn't date anyone. I just...
No, I see what you do on the
weekends. I mean, you know things. And so, timing was never there. And so he had come home to handle some legal things with the passing of his father. And so him being able to handle that, it was something that I was like, oh, he's got it together,
impressive.
Like that was impressive to me. And so before we had known each other, and so it was one of those things where I was like, oh, maybe now is the time and we can maybe try this, because I happen to be single, he happened to be single. And so we just tried it. And I mean, that was the summer of 2017. In 2018, we lived together. In 2019, things weren't great, and we separated for 6 months. And then but sadly, against my better judgment, we ended up getting back together and moving in February of 2020. And then he lost his job with COVID, and then I did. And then in June of 2020 is when everything happened. So as sad as that was, and leaving all of the jobs that I had at the time, I have always just worked. And that was something I never realized, that I'd thrown myself into work to get away from home. And I always had a reason. And I always convinced myself that I needed the money, or I needed this, or I needed that, or that's where I kind of felt valued, was when I was working. And so I was working a lot. And that winter when we got back together, I had said that I wanted to quit all of my jobs and just do bartending, but that I would need support, because I'd never done that. And with bartending, you don't know what you're going to make. And so I had kind of leaned into that a little bit, and then COVID happened, and we couldn't work. And so at first I was like, oh man, is this the universe telling me that I messed up royally? And what are we doing? But no, I think it allowed us to kind of regroup. I was able to, he had lost his job, and so I was home too, but I had income coming in, and I did have a little bit of a nest ache stashed away. And so I just kind of took those couple of months to hang out, ultimately, is all we did. But what that turned into was just cases of Coors Light and pretty terrible arguments, and not good things.
So I remember hearing some statistics, and tell me if I'm wrong, maybe you've heard too. Like 2020 was a very bad year for domestic violence, for alcoholism, and drug abuse, because you couldn't do anything.
We couldn't do anything. Yeah. And we were, for the first time, we were in closed doors. And so, and it was, not necessarily mandated, but forced you were kind of forced to be together, and you were only around that close circle. So it was whoever was there, and you were discouraged to get into large crowds. And so, we had us and another couple that was always over, and it was just drinking and playing games, all card games, or I did teach myself how to crochet that year, but it wasn't all bad even at the end, but with the drinking did come the arguments, and I always got a little bit of liquid courage, and so whatever I was frustrated about would just come out, come out. And so I did have to take ownership in that, as far as when you're with someone, even though I look back at it and I was like, we really weren't together that long. It felt like so long that we were together, that where to poke and prod, and sadly, we did that, and so I'm not saying that aspect of it, but I do think that in the end, it did come to an end in an ugly way, but it also was really eye-opening, and just a good,
it was supposed to happen.
It was supposed to happen, because I think I was supposed to go to the counseling and meet those women. When I started, it was an over-jammed class of 22 ladies in there, and all different states in life. Some had kids, some didn't. Some were there on a work release program, things like that. And so it was going into it and being able to hear everyone's different stories, and the statistics as far as women. The class that I was in was a non-violent domestics class for women, and so we weren't necessarily considered huge violators, but we did do something, and it was kind of like an anger management style class as well. Yes. And so it started actually at one area, and we did about 4 weeks there, and because of, you kind of came into the program when it started, but you had to, however long it took you to complete the weeks that you were supposed to complete, was however long you're in there. So some people would be there for up to a year, 2 years. Some people would only be in it for the 4 weeks. For the 30. No, it was 30 weeks is what you had to do. And so it was a long course that we had to do. It was every Thursday. So it went from one place, and the class started with that many, but when we finished, I actually was able to finish at 26 weeks, because there was only me and one other girl that were going to finish the class at the time, and they had transferred it from where I was housing it over to Tuller, and it was more like a regular normal counseling session at that point.
So I think what your situation, what's really special about it is you had to go to counseling, you were forced into counseling. Yes. Because most people that we know is they go to counseling on their own terms, and I think that's super important for people to be okay with counseling.
Yes.
That it teaches you a lot, that it's very valuable. A lot of people go to counseling, and I will be the first to admit that every time I've been to counseling, I want to say maybe 5 different times since I was 19 years old. So in the last 15 years, I've been to counseling 5 different times with 5 different people. And the first time I went, there was absolutely like nothing. Like I was like, it didn't do anything for me. Yeah. The second time I was like, I don't even know why I'm here. The third time I was like, I don't know if I should come, but I'm a person that doesn't give up. So because I told myself I would do this, I kept going. And then it was like the 4th time, it was just like, whoa, I was supposed to be here. Yeah. So I want to like emphasize on that to not give up. You know, and then if you do feel, you know, if you've tried it a few times and you just are like, I do not connect with my counselor, there's always more help.
Yes.
And I know, and everybody's, you know, tells you it's expensive, it's a lot of money, you know, insurance probably doesn't cover it. Some insurance do. Mm-hmm. I think I took my daughter when I first got divorced to counseling. She was having the hardest time. I think her Medicaid covered insurance because of the situation. And I took counseling just recently, like a year ago, and I want to say I was paying like $20 to maybe 30 at most, like each course or each session. And it was like 2 hours long. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, I mean, you know, if you don't buy coffee for 5 days, like you can afford it, you know?
Definitely. And I think with my counseling being in a group setting, it was a little bit more comfortable for me, but as the girls started trickling off for either because they were finishing the class or because of personal issues, I started to really enjoy going to them.
You
looked forward to them because each week we wouldn't know what we were going to cover. But also with everything that happened in that week too, it was kind of as you got to know the girls and as they got to know their stories and things like that, you kind of it turned into kind of like a women's group meetup where you kind of got to vent, learn, put a little bit of energy into yourself. Yeah. And so I did that.
So I wanted to add, how Maria wanted to emphasize on like your amazing strength, and even though you were forced to go do something, the bloomed effect afterwards is huge. And last time on the podcast when we were talking with Anna about it, and we were talking about how sometimes we get really annoyed by people telling us like it'll get better, it'll get better. Yes. I feel like a lot of the times with counseling too, and the resources that we talk about, I think that that's really big, because sometimes being in that situation and being told like from somebody else, whether it's somebody that's been through it or not, when those words hit us, it doesn't hit. But when it's constant and it's repetitive, it's because it's with purpose and it's because there's a reason. And even though they're not fully ready, like Maria said, sometimes that is best, because nobody's ever going to be ready to leave a scary situation all the time. Not everybody's going to have the strength to be able to be like, you know what, I'm done. Let's do it. Let's get out of here. Not everybody has that strength. Like it took me 15 years. And it took my kids saving my life for me to be like, you know what, this is not healthy. One of these moments, I'm not going to wake up, and my kids are not going to see that. So sometimes being able to have groups like what we have now, like even I feel like these are our vent sessions as well, because it's so powerful, because it brings up every emotion and every feeling, right? So I feel like having you being able to go through those courses to give hindsight to a lot of these victims that are trying to be survivors, but they can't because they're stuck in that cycle and they can't see an opening. I think it's great for you to be like, you know what? Let's just go, even if we're like, you know what, let's just go do this together, because I think it'd be so huge and super impactful. And even like when we start these podcasts, I always have people write in our little journal right there that how they're feeling before they open up. When they listen to it and when I see them again, I want them to kind of go over how they feel afterwards, because I feel like it's such a huge difference to see how scared and nervous you were, but then see how powerful you are afterwards, because it is such a different feeling. And I don't know if you guys have seen that. I know that you have. After you tell your story, and even like the scary parts that you keep hidden away, when you finally let those out, how much relief you get.
Yes.
Like, how much relief. And it's
Well,
so powerful. And I know that when I told you, I'm like, hey, your episode's live, and I know that you were scared because
I was really
I was scared.
I was really scared because I didn't even think. I literally was like, oh shoot.
I know.
This is actually gonna go live.
Yep.
And I know a lot of people.
Yep.
People are gonna see
and
it.
people are gonna see, and now they're gonna like
Ask you questions.
and now they're asking my now relationship questions. So he's like, dude, I got like, you got to tell me more about what's going on with your podcast, because he's like, people are even starting to ask him questions.
But the nice thing about people asking questions is that they might be going through something on the back end and they don't.
And that's why I want to be here, and I want to talk about it, as scary and as uncomfortable as it may be to kind of relive some of those moments. You never know when it's going to click for you or who says it. That will click. It'll be that you'll hear it. You'll hear what you need to hear,
or who it will help,
or who it will help. And so, yeah,
it is true.
Well,
it's like
I
those clicking
think it's
moments.
cool because these last couple episodes, like, you kind of watched her, and she's like, as the guests that we've had have spoken, you're like, oh, wow, like, okay, yeah, and you start to get, and so that's been really cool to watch.
But even afterwards, like, you know, people that you don't even know and you talk to them about it, or even if they find us or whatever and they're like, oh my gosh, that's you. Like,
well, like I had mentioned before, I had complete strangers coming up to me in bars that I didn't even frequent, that I didn't even knew who I was or who I had dated, coming up to me to have conversations with me about and share their stories. And it was just, it's crazy because he is still out there, and it does still happen to me more frequent than I would have ever thought. But I'm glad that they are, because I think that they also need to share, because I think I was with him the longest out of so far everyone that has spoke to me. So
yeah,
and it's it's sad.
But I like how you, even at the beginning when you were talking about how, like, you didn't think that you were so isolated and into such a daily pattern that you didn't realize that you were being mistreated.
I didn't.
I think that is so huge, because we all feel like that. Whenever somebody mentions that, you can see it, like she says, in our faces. We're like, yep, and it just clicks. But it's because these people are so similar in their evil ways that we're just
and then it becomes so routine for them too. Like they're so predictable in what they're gonna say and how their day is gonna be and what they need. You know, like, it really is predictable down to a time. And so when it is slightly off, that is kind of what throws you a little bit askew. And now I have to give myself a little bit of credit too, because I think back then my intuition was kicking in and telling me, and there was only 2 people, one close to him and one close to me, that knew what was going on, but it was mostly just because I was just complaining, like, gosh, take me, like, you have to be my vent sesh. So I would, like, run away and go fishing with them, or run away and we'd go have bacon and egg tacos, or like, they were my people that I could vent to about, this person's driving me so crazy, and then I'd get it off my chest, and then I'd be fine for however long until it was a big argument. But she was one of the only people that knew. And so the day that my head did go in the dryer, she did come to my rescue and pick me up that day, and she let me cry, and she took care of me and let me sleep on her couch and everything. And it broke her heart when the next time she saw me, I was back with him. And so she didn't understand, and she never really harped me on that. And I think in our own times we kind of see that. But it really was just a really close circle. I didn't even notice that we were literally just to an hour of every day. It was so predictable of what we were gonna do. And yeah, it was, am I gonna drink enough to be able to tolerate him, or am I gonna drink enough and things are gonna go sour? And I didn't realize that I was consuming the amount of alcohol that I was consuming. And it was still less than what it was. But now I like look back at it and I was like, man, I was every couple of days we were
fighting.
We were fighting, and it was almost every time I had to re-up on the case of Coors Light. It was also like there was that battle too of it was just
yeah. When you find yourself, I don't know if you guys have ever been in that situation, but like for me, whenever I would have a day off and he was working, or I got off early and then he would come home, I don't know if you guys were like me and like had to pay attention to the time, or if you heard him pulling in the driveway and you heard that garage open, you're like panicking, running around, making sure the house is clean, making sure the food is cooking, and all of the things. And I didn't realize that until there was a
pickup.
Right. Well, sometimes I feel like I get into my emotions sometimes, and sometimes when that happens, your news feed always like is like on speed dial with everything, right? And so I came across one that said, when you have that constant feeling of fear when your partner is coming home, that's your sign. And I think about that and I'm like,
that's an early sign
that's a huge early sign. Like I was 14 and I should have saw that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't.
You were very young and you didn't have experience though.
I didn't.
Like, I think that's why like me getting into that relationship, my first one, and not knowing any different because there was nothing before that. And so that's why it was so easy to stay there, and not know that it wasn't okay.
Mm-hmm. But then at the time, like, I pushed all my friends away because he was the greatest person in the world. Right. And I only wanted to be around him because he was the only one that was fun.
Yeah. So I think at 14, honestly,
and
can't
even
blame
like, you. Yeah. Well, even when you were like, oh, like, who's this? And it was just like a really awkward
Yeah, I remember that day very clear.
And like I could just feel you wanting to ask me all these questions, and I was just so terrified. And then going home, and he's like backhands me. He's like, "What the F did you tell her?" And blah blah blah. And then I didn't talk to you again after that.
Yeah. And
like even at graduation, like it was a quick, "Hey, bye." Like I couldn't even take pictures with anybody. Like it was just him. Yeah. Grandpa.
Well, even I was gonna say even at family social stuff. You were literally like, there. Hi bye. It was always a hi bye.
It was always hi bye. And I was like, sorry, I gotta go. Like, and I think back about all the times now, and I'm like, gosh, why was I so naive?
See, but here's the thing, though, is okay, but we were young, and we didn't know how to recognize that as a sign, because even now, like, listening to your story, and I was in that same room. We were at the same Christmas dinners, the same Thanksgiving dinners, and so I sensed that, and so it makes me sad because you sense that, but then you never really know what's going on, and sadly we don't want to ask her, we don't,
I remember,
it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, like nobody knew, nobody ever dared to ask. My mom confronted one time when we got in this really big argument. My mom was dropping me off at he was dropping me off at a family barbecue, and I was in the back seat and I was pregnant. So my mom at the time goes up to him and was like, hey, why is my daughter in the back seat? She's pregnant. She should be in the front seat, and you should be opening the door for her.
I remember this conversation,
and
actually.
My mom was so pissed. And because my mom was mad and was protecting me, because she was like, how dare you? And what's up with that bruise on her face? Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, confronted him. She was calling him out. And he literally forced me back in the car, and we left. No. And since that day, I wasn't allowed to talk to my family. No. I wasn't allowed to go see them. A few days later, another one of our aunts was like, what the F is on your back? And I had a shirt on, and I had short hair. I always had short hair. And she was like, what the hell's on your back? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, come with me. So she takes me into the bathroom. She lifts up my shirt, literally from the top of my neck, all the way down my back, all the way down my legs. She literally took pictures, like drove my butt to the courthouse and was like, she needs this now. And got it approved. She drove me to the house, got my kids, got clothes. We left. He panicked. He completely panicked. Where the hell are you? Like, I'm so sorry. I miss you. I just want to bring you food. I want to bring you flowers. Yep. Well, my other uncle on my dad's side of the family found out. And immediately he went and drove over to, at the time we were living with his family, and he drove over there and he started to punch him in the face. And was like, how dare you? She's so tiny. What the hell's wrong with you? All the things, like she's pregnant, like all of everything that you can think of. And ever since that moment, I wasn't allowed to talk to that side of the family either. So it took me a long time to be able to talk to my mom again. And then when I finally got to talk to my mom again, we were inseparable for a year before she passed. But it's like, moms always know, and they're never afraid to be like protect you, right?
I'm like, I wish I could say the same. So it's really nice. Like, it's nice to hear that.
Yeah. So it's like, if I feel like if my mom would have fought harder for me, I'm not saying that she didn't, because she did, right?
She just didn't. Yeah, you didn't allow
there was
her.
A line that I couldn't,
I couldn't.
like there was times where I would sneak over and go see her, or, you know, and I miss that a lot.
Right.
So I always tell people, like when I talk to them about my story, I always say, always have your mom or always have your family, because you're not always going to have them, and your mom's always going to be there. Even if there's times where you don't like her, she doesn't like you, whatever, your mom's always going to be that one that's always going to want to protect you at all costs.
Yeah, I'm sad. I can't say the same thing, because when I asked for help, that's who I went to, because I figured like that's who was supposed to protect me. And you right now saying like when he would come home, like the garage door closing and all that, I can't relate to that with my relationships, because I was the one coming home. It was my parents. Every time they came home, they were pulling up. If I saw them at the stop sign, like, oh my gosh,
start running.
Yeah, running. Like, make sure the dishes are washed, make sure the lights are
feel
off.
That
you know,
so much.
So, like, it brought a whole bunch of memories when you were talking about that. But it wasn't my relationships that I went through that.
Right.
It was with my parents. And yeah, it's sad. Like for me, like my parents like helped my abusers instead of helped me. And so, yeah, I'm so glad that you had family there to protect you, that we're trying to be on your side, that we're trying to help you, because I didn't open up to a lot of people. And so they didn't know what was going on. Like it was pretty much all me until the day that I spoke and said something. My two friends at work, they're boom, like that. Like they got up and they're like, what do we need to do? Let's take you, like, we're going to hide you away, you know? And yeah, that's why I was able to get away. But
do you think a lot, and I don't know, I was just thinking about this. Angelica knows what's going on, but I have family members now that are going through, it's like pretty bad with domestic. It's not like they're abusing, but like there's a lot of mental, a lot of cops and stuff that are involved. And to go through it and then be on the other side of it where I'm seeing it.
Right.
Do you feel like people don't talk about it or come to aid or do anything? Because like for me, I'm like, dude, I don't want to say anything. I'm like, I don't want to say anything, because I'm like, if I say something to him, if I say something like that, I remember what happened to me when my grandparents even initiated that he was doing something to me, or that
you're scared of the repercussions
should have been working
to them.
for them.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm scared for you, and I'll do everything I can for you, but also like I don't want to get you in trouble. Like, what if he goes crazy?
And not just that, but sometimes when you're in that situation, I don't know. I'm just gonna assume, kind of like when you were going through that and somebody helped you, and then you went back, you kind of would shut those people out that were trying to help you. I feel like I don't know. You're scared to lose a relationship also with your family members, because they're gonna be told like, no, they're not on your side. They just want you to leave me, you know? They're just, so they might retaliate against you, I guess, in a way, because you're trying to help, because they're not seeing like that you're being good.
Helpful,
like,
that you're trying to be helpful.
Yeah. But I also feel that. And so, I always tell you, because I'm really into my faith, and I know that you are too, I'm always like, dude, pray on it. And whatever feeling you get after you pray on it, that's what you're supposed to follow. And even though right now, like, it's such a hard situation, I feel like if something were to happen and you didn't act on it, you are going to blame yourself.
Yeah. It's almost like when you know somebody's getting cheated on, you know,
And
and
you're like,
you
"I
go
wanna
and tell them.
That's where I was
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of touch base on that, because I kind of feel I see where you're saying with that, because I kind of did recognize it, but also I think maybe I did feel it a little bit
like,
with
well,
towards
what
Angelica,
if
but
something happens to
also
her?
because I never knew the next time that we were gonna see her. Because really, it was
literally
just if I happened to be there if we showed up at the right time,
they would see me. For
they would
maybe
see
5 minutes.
maybe, and that was it. And so, and with our family, like you could say it started at one time, but it wouldn't start. Like it would start from that time and 5 hours later.
Yeah.
And so you know so it was, and people just constantly came and gone. You know, all that's always how it was. And in my family, I kind of distanced myself a little bit because we did have some family things going on, and it ended up being that anytime I was around family for a little bit, I wasn't who they asked about. They wanted to know what was going on with everyone else. Right. And that was kind of, now looking back at it, that was kind of hurtful for me in moments, because at one point I did just have to say, hey, if you're gonna ask them, just pick up the phone and call them if you want to know what's going on in their life, because I think I had so much going on that I was actually keeping a secret, that I think I was kind of wanting them to ask me how I was doing, but they weren't asking me how I was doing.
I feel like that always happens when there's moments when you're like so overwhelmed. You're like, I just want to tell somebody. But they weren't
asking, and because they were asking about everything else. And so finally I did. I was just like, if you're gonna ask about so-and-so, then call them. But I don't know about them because I'm not talking to them right now. I had to remove myself from toxic what I thought were toxic situations. And I had removed myself for one reason, and in doing that, maybe that I had kind of separated myself a little bit from family. And so then getting into a relationship with him, I was living with some friends. I did have a lot of respect for him, so I didn't let him come stay in. We were actually camping in a tent outside in her backyard because I didn't want to bring him into her home. But then that's why I think we moved in together when we did it as quickly as we did, was because we did want our own space. And so I don't think I ever actually let the relationship grow into anything. Like, I don't ever think I gave myself the opportunity to see any red flags or anything, because I just, in my mind, I was like, oh, it's just timing's right, and we're just going, we're just going with it. And then
do you feel like he instigated stuff with like the separation between your family? Because like I like,
no, but I think I did, because I was really worried that if my family members, if my siblings found out what was going on, I was worried that they were going to hurt him, or someone knows someone. And not saying that we're anything like that, but that was just I was like I was more so worried about him. And then my family getting in trouble because they went and jumped him or whatever, that's what I didn't want. But also, he had a little bit of connect with some people in town, and I never realized that until afterwards. And so I also, kind of in the back of my mind, I was always really scared of getting in trouble and it all just coming down. And in the beginning, he had, when we first... when everything was panning out and the protection order came into play, and they actually did give it to me because after they heard the story and figured out everything that was going on, he actually moved in with someone around the block of where I was living. And so I was like, he was driving by, and the dogs were recognizing his vehicle. And so I put cameras up because I was like, this guy is literally
right around the corner.
Around the corner, And he had told me, I will write a letter. Don't do anything don't worry about your counseling. Don't worry about paying this. Don't worry about this. He's like, I'm going to write a letter and say that I'm not going to be pressing any charges
to get
because
you
me
out of
trouble. Mm-hmm. But he never planned on doing that. And of course he never did do that. And I'm glad that I did go through and write out every single thing, because they challenge you in counseling, and they make you write out, like, you know, what your triggers are, what you think your triggers are, and they teach you a female thought process and a male thought process, and how certain situations are different, and it's just how we see them. It's just our perspective. It's how we're built in our DNA. And so writing it out, like, you can just tell in my handwriting, like, the slant that it was, just piss. But as I'm, like, timing it, and I'm, like, putting it back, and I was like, dude, like, flag. Or, like, then I took pictures of it, and then I, like, typed it in text form, too, because I was like, oh, just had to get it going, you know? And connecting all of the dots and going back and forth to it, it's like, it really does.
Like, how did I not?
How did
see
we
that?
not? How did we not?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's the greatest thing about counseling, honestly, like, how if you're open to it, how mature.
That's why I'm so excited to re-go through that, and just being able to see my maturity, and also too my handwriting in the beginning of the book to the end of the book. Like, even just, you could tell that I was actually
trying.
Oh, I was trying. I was taking it in. I was seeing how it applied to me in that moment, and I was practicing what they were telling me to do, and the amount of growth, like, thinking back on it, it's cool to see, but I never saw it. And even, and I'm not one, I have all the pictures on my phone, but I'm not one to, like, scroll through, and that, like, I'm a scroller, though. Sometimes I am, but sometimes I have to. It has to be a moment. But you can even just see it in your penmanship, in everything, in my penmanship, in what I was taking pictures of, what I was posting, like, in all trails of life, it was following me, and trying to get me to be aware of trying to just have my moment of where it's kind of like clicked. What Sham was saying when Sham was on our show or on our podcast. It just had to be mine. About that, when you're going through something.
Yeah, be careful what you post. Like, if you're sad, you know, like, people victims, predators notice that.
They do notice that.
Yeah.
Not just predators, but, like, all of the, like, advertisements too.
Mm-hmm.
They also know that.
And they're like, ching ching.
Yes.
The FBI agents work hard.
Yeah.
When you were reviewing that, did you notice, like, the difference in the beginning from, like, your honesty about the situation to, like, the end of it?
No, because I went into it and I was so fuming that I was like, if they say that I need this, then okay, I'm gonna, and so I did. Like, I went into it and I was as honest as I could be. Like, pissed. Like, just, it was like I was just writing a letter to myself. Or talking to myself, venting to myself in a lot of the things as I go through. I'll let you look through when we're done if you want to.
I think that is something that we should.
I just went into it open, because honestly, I think in that moment I was like, well, they say that I need it, so I'm gonna do it, because what does it hurt? Right. What does it hurt for me to do it? The judge is gonna review this later, and even though I'm the one who got the charges, they are going to ask me if I want to have another protection order. And to be 100% honest, yes. Because it wasn't until after I went through each week of class, and it was something to look forward to, of what I was going to learn and how I was going to feel afterwards, I knew at the end of that, to be able to say that I completed it and I put in that work, that I knew he should be in this
your spot,
this spot, but I know he never will.
Right.
He'll
That's why I say I think it's so awesome that you got forced to do something like that, because it helped you open up,
it humbled me, but it opened up my eyes to how all of us as women can be so different, but yet battle similar emotions and similar home situations without even recognizing. Because even I never would have thought my very first boyfriend in high school would have given me that same fear. But when you're saying, when you'd hear them hurry up and come home, and I would literally run through my head on my day off to make sure that I got everything completed on the checklist, so that in case he had a bad day, at least all my stuff was done, so that he might actually acknowledge me. And I didn't even realize that even at that early of a relationship, and I've dated a lot of different styles of people too, because I always thought that there was one particular individual or type. And I've dated the nerd. I've dated the fat guy. I've dated it's doesn't.
You don't have a type.
There isn't. I don't have a type. I don't have a type at all. I just want someone to love me as much as I'm going to love them, and in the right ways. Right. And so, it can affect you, and
they come in every
shape and size,
and form. Yes. Mm-hmm. Because the same. Like I never had a type. Right. Like every single one of like my relationships have all been different.
Well, and I never knew. I didn't come from an abusive family or anything like that, but my mom did work a lot, and anything that I could do to take off of her plate, I did kind of fall into that role of my mom had all three of us within a year and a half, and so she had 3 kids by 19, and so she worked, and then my dad worked nights, and then so I kind of helped raise the kids and things like that, but anything that I could take off of her plate. But if I really think about that, even just that lifestyle, I didn't think that would be drawing in, but it did. I mean,
well, it is, because we were talking about this the other day, and it was like they go to nurturing, caring people, like, because then you care about them, so they can be mean to you.
But then we also see the good sides, or with him, he thought I was out of his league, and he was so beneath me.
Worst.
So he thought he was so beneath me, and so he was just like, he did make me feel good as far as I wanted to date him because I wanted him
to feel like he was worthy,
that he was worth it, and things like that. And
that is, I think, so many victims' story.
And like thinking back at it now, I'm like, no.
Both my marriages were the same exact thing. They thought I was way above them, so they had to bring me down to their level so that I wouldn't feel like I was
I didn't even recognize that I did get brought down to that level.
That's because
they
start out so great. Like,
because in the beginning they're like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing, I'm putting you up here. But at the same time, they're starting to tear you down and tear you down and tear you down to get to their level. Or they make you feel like you're beneath them.
Yeah. Well, I seen this thing, I was like posting because I follow those things, and I seen this thing, and they were like, they go after
the prize.
Yeah, they go after, right? Because they hate themselves so much that they think getting this prize is gonna like validate them in some way. But secretly, they hate you because you're
the prize.
Yeah, because you're so, and so they hate you. So then they do all this stuff.
And they need you.
Yeah, and so they do all this stuff, and it's like a game to them. It's like,
so they talked about that. I don't know exactly what chapter it's on, but they literally tell you that if your person that you're dating or trying to have a relationship with is not above, like, you're gonna match wherever they are. So if you are or you're gonna, they're gonna bring you down to it. And that was, I remember doing that lesson, and it was just crazy, the different things. I'll have to review it and touch base later on it, but it clicked when I saw it, and it clicked for me, and I was like, oh my gosh, they totally do that. They do that, and you don't.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that I was being broke down little. Like, my confidence was being just picked at little by little without even recognize it. And I was, and a lot of it too, like with my drinking, I always said I didn't have a drinking problem, but no, I did have a drinking problem. Like, I was doing the harm my own self to myself because, I mean, it was
coping.
I was coping. Like, and now, like, thinking back about it, like, some days I didn't know, like I said, I don't know if I was drinking to tolerate, or if I was drinking to drown, to fall asleep, like, to go to sleep and begin the day the next day, you know, start over again the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. With my first marriage, there was a lot of that. Like, he was way, like, I was way out of his league. And he would always tell me that. And he'd always, you're so beautiful, this and this and that. But, I mean, I was 80 pounds less than I am now. You know, it's just this tiny, tiny thing. And I had stretch marks just because I have a different body shape, you know, just turning 16. I started to develop boobs, you know, finally, and hips.
Like a woman.
Yeah. And I had stretch marks from that. And it was like stuff like that. Like, I wasn't insecure about when I was younger, but he pointed like, that is disgusting. That is ugly. Like, you need to you can't go to sleep next to me unless you put cocoa butter all over your body. And that's actually that literally just came back to me because I hadn't thought about that in years. I totally forgot about this. Like, this was back then. Like, I hadn't talked about this ever. I do remember the hugest thing was I grew up in a family where you don't wear bikinis to go swimming. You wear shorts and a tank top. And the day I turned 18, he's like, you're never wearing that again. And if you're too embarrassed to wear a bikini, a two-piece, then you're too ugly to go swimming with me. And I won't take you swimming.
Yeah.
And so his mom was the one that told me, Maria, you are beautiful. Yeah. You are gorgeous. Look at him. He is overweight and he doesn't feel good about himself. So he has to bring you down to feel better about himself. You go to the gym and work yourself out so much, and he wants you to lose weight because he can't lose weight, not because he wants you to lose weight. And he's like, you're perfect the way you are. You look great. And that was his mom, you know, and she saw it. She saw that he would try to bring me down, but that was like between me and him. In public, it was like, look who I'm with, you know? And then with my second marriage, it was day one. It was just bring me down, bring me down, bringing me down. You know, like the first couple of weeks, it was like, you're so beautiful. You're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. Like, it was love at first sight type of thing. And then it was just that, like just bringing me down. Like, you don't look good in those jeans. Like, why would you wear makeup? Anybody who knew me in high school knew I always had a flower in my hair. I match everything all the time. And I had a matching flower every single day. Like, I had a flower for every outfit. Like, I would make my own flowers.
I did too.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
And after I had my daughter, I think she was... Yes. Like, I would... after I had my first daughter... I remember him making a comment like several times until it stopped. And he probably made it 3 times. And I was like, I'm done. That he's like, why are you so childish? You look so childish wearing a flower in your hair. Like, that is so a long time ago. Like, get rid of that. You have a kid now. Put flowers on her, not you. You look like a kid. And... that was such a like big thing for me. Like that was my staple.
That made you happy.
Yeah. And I stopped. Like I think it was after we moved the second time that I ended up throwing all my flowers away because I was just like, these aren't for me anymore. You know.
That makes me sad because
Yeah, but yeah, like, and he would break me down. I had just turned 20 years old. And I was pregnant. I was probably a month pregnant. We were at Walmart. I And look at my jeans now. Like, they got rips on them, okay? I had jeans
Those
just
are
like
purposely
this.
there.
Yes, like, I had jeans just like this on that day at Walmart. We were going grocery shopping. We had just moved in together. Just found out I was pregnant. And he goes, his cousin was there. And let me tell you, she is my mom's age. I didn't know how old she was. I knew she was older. She's my mom's age. So she was already in her 40s. I was 20 years old, just turned 20. And she said hi to us. And after she walked away, he goes, that's kind of embarrassing you're wearing jeans like that. Like, you don't see my cousin wear something like that. Like, you're an adult now. You shouldn't be wearing stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I had to throw away all my jeans that had any distressing on them. Up until the day I got divorced. And now, anytime I get to wear jeans, I wear distressed jeans for that reason.
The retaliation.
Yes. I mean, look at my tattoos. You know, like, I had one tattoo. And it was for the first 5 years. It was, why would you ruin your body? Mm-hmm. And the day he met me, I was wearing a white tank top at a dance and I was soaked in sweat. You could see through my shirt, in my back, because my tattoo was on my back. I had that tattoo for 6 months when I met him. And he asked about it. So he knew I had a tattoo. And he made sure every second he got, he would always tear me down about my tattoo. Why did you ruin your body? It's so disgusting. Why would you do that? So the moment I got divorced, like, I have 14 tattoos now, you know?
And counting.
And counting. And I do remember a year ago when I got this one, it's the first tattoo that shows. All my other tattoos are covered up, and I think it's over the same thing. I still, like, I have...
It's still a trigger.
Mm-hmm. This year I have told myself, like, I am allowed to have tattoos.
Not me. I'm like, watch this.
Yeah, like, I'm allowed to have tattoos. I'm allowed to show them. It's okay. I love them. And the day that I got it, and I remember it was, like, on my day off. And that same week, he was going to drop off the kids to me. And I had a t-shirt, and it shows this much of my tattoo right there. And as soon as my kids saw me, Mom, you got a new tattoo! And I was just like, oh my God, not in front of your dad. You know? I was like, oh no, even though I want to do everything he told me I wasn't allowed to do so that he doesn't want to be with me, like, it still, like, triggers me, you know? And, like, I guess getting along now with him, because we have been getting along, it's the craziest thing ever. I try to not be triggered by it. Like, if I'm wearing a tank top or something, I'm like, I don't realize it until later. Then I'm like, oh my gosh, he saw my tattoos. Mm-hmm. But I try not to care about it, you know, like I used to. But I'm just like, oh, I hope he realizes, you know, like, they're not ugly.
There comes a point when you get to this healing point where you're just like, you can watch.
Yeah.
It's not always like that though, because there's always you're always gonna have triggers where you're terrified. Mm-hmm. Like, we were both terrified when we went live on the news channel.
Yes.
We were like, I'm like, Maria, and it was just. But then afterwards, we're like, why?
So I say this because I love that we talk about it, because I think we're all helping each other
heal.
Realize we're all helping each other heal, but we're also helping each other, like, click with the why. Because I think we when we are triggered, we want to suppress it down, but I think we're being triggered to feel it, to see maybe a different perspective, or just a reminder of where we've been and what we've come from.
Yeah.
And
which I love that you say it that way, because we literally say the same thing every single time. Like, it's, you open that door that you never want to open again, but the second that you do and you cry and you let it out, your body just, this relaxation comes over your body and you're exhausted, you're drained.
Yes.
But when you say it and you listen to it and you're like, damn, I forgot. But then you're like, I feel really good. But it's also cool because now that we all are healing together and we all have this purpose that we just kind of aligned, like whenever we struggle, we call each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, we call you. I know I call you.
She does, yes. She calls me, I call her. I sometimes I'll call
like,
you,
oh my
you
God.
call me. She's like, I am so sick of this crap. And like now that I have you and I'm like, hey.
Yes.
Yeah, and so and it's nice because I feel like now that we've like connected, I feel like sometimes we always know when something's wrong. Because we'll be like,
yeah.
Hey, are you okay? And then she'll call me and she'll be like, dude, no, like I'm so overwhelmed. Like, and I'll do the same thing, like, I don't know what's wrong, like I'm just irritated, but it's really nice because we can all just
Well, in life we're busy people. We have a lot of things going on, and you just never really know. And so this gives you the moment. Like, I love that we've been able to reconnect, share stories, and just have that group to
and I'm really glad that
rely on.
I saw you that day at the chamber event, and I'm really glad that I saw you, and then like just talking to you, I'm like, hey, you should just join
consider
us.
it. And I knew it had before you had even asked. I had been connecting with people, like random people had been coming to me and just getting us close, like in more situations where we were actually running into each other more and just talking.
Well, ever since like then, and like I kept seeing you, I'm like, I gotta just go ask her.
And
I just like, and I did.
I was afraid too. Like, well, how am I gonna be able to help? Like, how can I relate? Am I like?
And I think it just comes down to like a feeling. Like I feel like it's always that feeling. Like,
well, even
that one day when we were at the bar, and I was like, that girl walked past us, and immediately I was like, Maria, I don't think she's okay. And you're like, what? And I was like, I don't think she's okay. And you're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I just had a vibe. Like, I'm just gonna go check on her. And so I did. I was like, hey, are you okay? And she was like, uh-huh. And I was like, are you okay? And then like her boyfriend or whatever like pulled her in, and I was like, she's not okay.
Yeah, when I joined, I mean, she came to me and asked me, and I was
it was crazy. Like, I went to her a week before, and I just bawled because she was like, I haven't seen you in so long. I didn't even know you got a divorce. I didn't even know you had another baby. Like, we just, like, caught up. And then, like, I was telling her, and then I kind of just opened up out of just nowhere. Like, and I don't talk about my story. And I just, like...
She just came when I was busy.
Let it out, and she started crying, and I started crying. And then I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. And then, like, a week later, I was like, hey, Maria, so...
And I was like, I want to do this for her because, like, it's just, like, a nice thing to do, you know? But I'm like, I don't feel like I relate, or not relate, but, like, I don't know what I even can do to even help. You know? I'm just like, I don't feel like I fit in here. Even though I'm a survivor, like, I just don't feel like I fit in here. And we were sitting at the bar for pictures that first time, everybody together, and they start talking about things, and all of a sudden I was like, I got this idea, and I got this, and I was like, oh my gosh, I do fit in. Like,
and I feel like that's with everybody that's on the board, because that was the same with her. Like, I met her through Lolly, and Lolly's like, hey, Sydney's having this ball, you should, like, totally go. And so I was like, okay. And then I meant to reach out to her, but then Sydney reached out to me instead. And then we just kind of connected. And then we had a phone call to discuss. I don't even remember what it was.
It was for the ball. It was because I had been posting about doing the ball. And then Lolly was like, hey, have you seen that 1614 group that's opening in Idaho Falls? Like, they're new, And I was like, yeah, dude, I follow their Facebook page. Like, I seen somebody post about it. I don't even know who it was, but I'm like, that looks cool. So then I followed you guys, and then Lolly said something, and then I don't even know. But then I was like, man, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to bug them and see what they could do.
She was like, oh my gosh. She's like... And we just like connected, and we're like, we're friends forever now.
Yeah.
And it just connected.
I know she called me.
And
She's
then-
like, "Oh my gosh, I just talked to Sydney." I was like, "Sydney who?"
And she was like, the one with the ball. She's like, what?
Oh my gosh, and then it made me cry. Like, I hadn't met you, but you posted, I think, the day out of the ball, and it was like early in the morning, or your mom posted, and
Yeah.
you shared her post.
That
Yeah.
big
Yeah,
one
with,
that I made.
with the glasses,
Yeah.
yes. And I seen that, and I was like, I feel like I was talking to you, and I've never even met you. And I did my own post. I'm sure it will come up, here in a couple months, and I'm gonna repost it again so you see, because I didn't share it publicly. I think it was just my friends.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, wow, like, it's amazing how like, things just come together. And
Yeah, it's cool, and I love this, and I love everything that we're doing, because like, just sharing our stories, it's like, oh, well, they talked about it, so I want to talk about it, and then they heard their friend talk about it, and they're like, I went through the same thing, and it's so special.
It is.
Yeah,
it
it's
is.
special.
It's just special.
It is. And we
Yeah.
talk about it with people all the time, like with Ken. Like, he was just like, what you girls are doing is amazing. It's a blessing. He's like, don't stop. Don't stop telling your story. Don't stop sharing your story. Don't stop, because you guys have a purpose.
Well, in each episode that we do, something else comes up. Like something.
Oh, every time.
Every time.
It's like a learning thing.
I enjoy it. It's
Yeah.
another something
good.
that I look forward to doing. So
because I know I try to focus, on different types of abuse, because I know for me personally, like, there was a lot of things that were abuse that I didn't know was abuse.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, I didn't learn about sexual abuse. I mean, I had heard of sexual abuse, but not from your partner. That there's spousal rape. I didn't know
Special
that.
victims unit.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was.
Yeah, I didn't know that spousal rape was a thing.
Yeah.
Until I got out of it. Like, I thought I
financial, too.
belonged to him.
And
You know?
Financial
yeah.
is huge, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of times where females in specific, where they're young, right? Their husband has this great job, and they're not allowed to go do anything because, well, the husband works, only he
It's
can spend
his
the
money. Yeah.
And so I think that's a big topic that Maria talks about a lot, because she wasn't aware of it. I wasn't aware of it until later. A lot of people aren't aware of it because they don't think that it's a thing, but it is a huge thing.
Yeah. That's one thing I'm teaching, not just my daughters, my kids, but especially my daughters, to always be financially independent, so that they never get stuck in a situation like that. And it's something,
I'm like, I experienced financial abuse opposite. Like,
but I did too with my first husband.
yeah.
I mean, not with my second husband, I did never really experience financial abuse, but with my first husband, just like you, I was the one providing, but I wasn't allowed to spend my own money.
It was just crazy.
Yeah.
That's the only thing about
Yeah.
the whole situation that makes me like upset still, because I'm like,
Yes.
Yeah.
But I was able to get out of it, I think, easier because I was the one that provided financially. If it would have been the opposite, I wouldn't have been able to get out. I think I would have been so dependent.
See, but for me, I went into this relationship and I didn't put him on the lease because I was protecting myself in that I was being financially independent and I could do my own thing in case the relationship didn't. And that, I think, is what flipped the switch, is when he saw that new lease and it was only in my name and not his. It was like a whole
like I can't control
Rolodex
her.
of, well, what else are you keeping from me?
Right.
If you kept this, what else are you keeping from me? And
Right.
that's when he started going through my phone more, and he started reading everything and watching the time on the clock of when I'm supposed to be home and calling if I wasn't home within 5 minutes, or just crazy things that, like, now I can look back at and be like, God, how did I not see that? That was
bad.
Yeah.
that it was that bad. Where
Yep.
The thing that bugs me about that is mine did that too. Everything. He had Life 360. He had the Google tracking. I had to send him the snap maps. I can't remember. He had like 10 different maps on me. And I'm like, dude, I'm at work. I never go anywhere.
To my knowledge, I don't think he was actually tracking me, but he knew of people who were tracking, and so I never assumed
Like,
that he
clicked
was.
it
Like, I never
together.
put two and two together,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't put it
Put it
past
past
him.
him.
The moment that I found out that, because I just realized he was driving by all the time, and it was because I was really, the dogs were noticing, and so they were running that fence line because they would recognize his car and thinking that he was coming home. And it wasn't until then that I realized, like, I put up the camera because I didn't know what he was doing. He, you know, we did live there, although it was brief. We did live there together, and so I didn't know what time he was getting off. I didn't know if he was watching me. I did, like, even getting at, like, I thought pretty horrible things that could potentially happen to me, or I pissed him off this bad that
he's stalking
me now.
Thankfully, I was, my first marriage, like, it was back when there wasn't those things available to you. So, but he would have totally done that. And I'm guilty. I was so insecure. I was so toxic during that relationship because he made me feel like I didn't trust him at all.
You weren't trusted.
Yeah.
Like, he
and
made
so
you feel like
I was the one watching the clock. Like, he had to report to me the second he left college. And he had to walk into my job to say hi. And it was 34 minutes on the dot. And I gave him 2 to 3 minutes, you know. And if it was off, if it was more than 10 minutes, I'd flip a switch. Who were you talking to? What were you doing? You know, I was crazy.
But that was because trust was broken.
Oh, yeah.
In yours. And so they
Yeah, because I dated him for almost 2 years and I had no idea, like, nothing. That
so
it
then
was.
At that point, you are blindsided.
Yep. And so when, you know, my last relationship, there were some things, like, I started figuring out that even though maybe they weren't, some of them were red flags and some of them weren't, I took it as a red flag because I already went through that.
Right.
You know, like, the profile photo. When he cheated on me, the profile photo that he had on his personal, the one that I knew about, his MySpace, he changed it to him wearing a Shrek mask. So that way his dating profile was of himself, and so nobody could tell that it was the same person. And so, like, my last relationship where it wasn't a picture of him, you know, or anytime I see somebody try to add me and they have a picture of a car or some cartoon character or something, I'm like,
you're like,
that's a cheater. Like,
I know.
There's a reason they don't put their face on there, you know, just stuff like that. I hated myself.
Well, but they made
so
you an
bad.
investigator because here's the thing.
I was better than the FBI.
Because that after I left that relationship, I did carry some insecurities into my next relationship where I would catch myself wanting to do the things that he would do that it would irritate me, that I'd be like, oh, well, I just need to double check. No, like, I was doing things completely out of character for myself.
Right.
Just
because you were accustomed
because
to it.
I was accustomed to it for so long that, I was on hyper alert.
Yep.
On everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I told myself after I left that relationship that I was like, I will never be that person again.
Well, I made it a firm boundary that is the number one thing. You go through my phone one time and it's like, it is such a deal breaker. Like, I wouldn't have a phone if I didn't need to have a phone, like, for work. Like, work, once upon a time, my phone was my work, and so I was on it all the time, and that did put dampers in my relationships because they were always like, you're never off the phone, you're never here present and whatnot. And so I made that like a focal point of when I'm home, no phone. Like, it sits on do not disturb. I'm not attached to it anymore. But I know that when I do settle down and I do have kids, that'll probably change. But that has always been a solid boundary for me of, I've had that same phone number since I left my house at almost 16 years old. And I probably, other than it's a new phone, like nothing gets deleted off of there. Right. So if you want to go through it, if you want to go through that,
like,
you're just gonna end up you're gonna see stuff from so far ago, and that's exactly what would happen. Is it would be like, well, what about this person and this person? It's like, look at the date. It's not even, you and I were not even a thing at this time.
You didn't even exist.
And so that was one thing where it's like, you go through my phone, you clearly don't trust me because I've nothing to hide on there, because there's photos on there from 2007. Like, you know, like, I
guilty.
That is still to this day something, it hurts my feelings every time. So I don't do it. And when people ask or want to go through mine, it's like, it's one of those things where I'm like,
for what?
Do it, but it hurts me. But it hurts me. Like, it really does hurt me, and it reminds me of him.
Yep.
Yeah. Is there anything, like, and this is to all of us, like, is there anything that you guys feel like you still are healing from? Like, for example, me, I feel like I need constant clarification.
I need validation.
Validation.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Validation for me.
I have to have validation over and over again. Even if, like, they made me feel comfortable and I'm like, oh, I'm okay. And then it might go a couple of days and I'm like, I need it again. Are you sure? Yeah. And I feel like I get annoying and I'm like, almost like, maybe I'm just not healed. You know, maybe I'm just not okay.
I think that's something that we'll probably always deal with because, like, it was, at least for me, and I'm sure it was like that for you guys, but it would be like, and he would do it on purpose, stupid. His shoe size, this was just a small one. He'd get mad because I didn't know anything about him. I never paid attention to him. I never anything. And he'd be like, well, what's my shoe size? You don't even know me. And I'm like, it's a 9, or I can't even remember now what it is. But, no, I'm a liar. It was a 9. It was a 9. And then it was like 2 weeks later, we got in a fight again because he was always on his phone. And he was like, always whatever. And then we were at the bank one day and I seen this. He was texting some girl, and it said my wife on the Facebook thing. So I'm like, you changed her name on the messenger, and you're driving my car while you're texting this girl. So I was perturbed. And we got into this really big argument, and then he's like, well, maybe if you paid attention, maybe it was something, blah, blah, blah. You don't even know my shoe size. I'm like, it's a 9. I remember because you yelled about me last week. You're like, I got yelled at for 30 minutes. It's a 9. I wrote it down. It's in my phone. Size 9. No, it's not. It's an 11. You don't even pay attention. My shoe size is an 11.
The gaslighting.
And he went and got a size 11 shoe.
And gaslighting.
And so you have to have that validation because like they do stuff like that all the time. So then you're like, you don't even trust yourself. I'm like, bro, I put it in my phone that it was a size 9 so that I could be like, no, it's a 9. I know for sure. Yes. And then he went and got size 11 shoes.
Oh my gosh.
So validation for sure.
Fit,
yes.
Because of the gaslighting.
I've had this since I was a kid, like with my parents. I had a camera when I think I turned 16. Like, they got me this really nice camera because I would take photos all the time. It was my favorite thing ever. So I had this camera. It was a digital camera. Like, that was big back in 2007.
Dang.
And you and I were practically the same person. I'm listening to you say this, and I'm like, next she's going to talk about the doodle bears and
hey, those things were great.
And the
MySpace frames,
the chapsticks,
Lisa Frank.
Yes. Well, so I had this camera, and when things started going really bad, like, I was also forced into counseling the first time with my parents. My parents were forced into counseling as a family counseling. So, after we left counseling, because they refused to keep going because they didn't think it was helpful, I had this camera and I would always take pictures and videos. Well, I felt like people didn't believe me because they always thought like, wow, like your parents seem so nice, and wow, I can't believe it. Like, they had to see it for themselves in order to believe me. So I would have to take videos of what was going on. And so when I would get in trouble with the cops, like, I had to show them, this is what happened. Here's the evidence. I had to have evidence to everything. And I'm still to this day, that's why I don't delete anything off my phone. Anything. I think I've had the same phone number since 2010. And I haven't changed that phone number. And everything, all the pictures, all the messages, everything gets backed up into my cloud every time I get a new phone. For the same thing. Because I want to have receipts. Every time somebody says, no, that didn't happen. No, it did. It did.
I found myself doing that. And I also started, because of court, I didn't know if it was how it was going to go. But I took pictures of the damages done in the house too, because I wanted the proof and videos. And it would be, sometimes you would just put the phone on record and just kind of walk around with it, pretending like, not just so that it could capture what was going on. Because sometimes everything happens so quickly and it always turns into that grabbing battle. And so
when I left my first husband, I thought I was going to die before I left. I actually he gave me a camera for Christmas from my own money. He bought me a camera because he knew I love photography so much. And that's also another reason why I don't do photography anymore, like as much, is because of the way like they played it out in court. I took photos like the last 2 months before I left of the bruises on my neck, on my forehead, on my face, anything that he had done to me. But nobody knew at this time what was going on. I hadn't told anybody. And there was the SD card. I had a little secret pocket in my purse that I would take it with me. And I told myself, before I leave, like, I have to give this to my best friend. And I actually, there was 3 people I had in mind, and you were one of them. Because I remember I still had your number, and, I didn't text you very often, but you were one of the people that I felt like I could trust if anything ever happened to me. And me and him watched documentaries all the time about, murder mysteries and stuff like that. So it was always the friend that told, if anything ever happens to me, open this. And so that was my thing. I had this little SD card with all the photos of all the evidence of everything that happened. They didn't show it in court. They put it in my paperwork, but they weren't allowed to use it in court because it wasn't documented by the officers themselves. Because I was the one that took it, they weren't allowed to use it. Right. It was in my documents, but it wasn't used in court itself. So, and then when his mom got up on the stand and she said, they asked her about my bruises. She's like, you're the only one in this entire world that saw the abuse happening, as per what Maria is saying. And she said, it's not true. It never happened. Well, how do you explain the bruises on her neck and the bruises on her face? Excuse me. And she said, oh, that girl will take pictures of anything. She loves to take pictures. And she loves attention. If you go through her pictures, she has thousands of pictures of herself because she thinks she's so beautiful. Wow. And she is just a slut. Those were hickeys on her neck, not bruises from my son. And that hurt so much just because I loved her. Yeah. She would call me her daughter and I would call her mom. And so when she said that, it tore something down inside of me that made me not like photography anymore. And that was something I wanted to go to school for. I still like to take pictures, but it's not the main thing, waterfalls. My waterfalls, yes.
It's I gotta document this.
Yes, every time. I always feel really awkward taking photos, but I love to document everything. For example, the passing of Rodrigo's mom. The whole time I felt like I should be taking photos because it was something super special, and I didn't want to interfere. What if it was to anybody they took it wrong, but at the funeral I was like, what the heck, somebody's gonna love this later, I even sent a clip to Rodrigo of him and his mom, him giving her a kiss on her forehead before she passed. And I was like, I'm really like glad that I caught that, but at the same time, like I was like, I hope they don't like hate me because I'm over here recording something that's very intimate for them, you know. So I'm like, I'm just a photography fanatic.
Yeah. I think you should maybe revisit that.
Yeah,
if you can, because I can tell that you did enjoy that a lot.
Yeah.
So
I did.
I think it'll. Heal
I think it might heal a little. I agree. I think,
and
so.
I think that's why I go on like these nature walks and waterfalls and stuff because I
They're
love doing that.
therapeutic. But yeah.
Yes.
Start
Yeah.
wearing your flowers again.
Yeah.
Flowers too, because that
Was a piece of you. That
Okay.
makes that's what
Okay.
no,
That's what I
like
was saying, no, but with the flowers, like that was
Like,
something that
was
you
special
got rid of all
to
of them, it was
you.
special to you, and I think
Right.
with the, I know that was a very harsh comment that she said and not true at all.
Yeah.
But she wasn't wrong. You did
Correct.
like to take
Yeah.
pictures of
Yeah.
yourself and did like to take the pictures, and so that.
I think you should too.
I think you should.
I think it'll bring
You
back
should.
more shine, and I think it'll be hard for a little bit, but I also think that it'll. It's
get rid
just
of
you.
that memory, because
Yeah.
that might be like one of your last
Yeah.
memories associated with
Right.
your camera that he got you.
Yeah.
We'll get you
with
a
his
new one.
money, but that.
Yeah. Like that's why I
makes
always
me
make
so
sure I have a
sad.
good phone because I love to take pictures and I'm like nobody can take that away from me, you know? And I make sure they're always backed up.
it's just like little pieces that they take from you,
That
and
they
like hearing
destroy.
Maria say that, like that just
Yeah.
it made me. I don't like that. That's sad. Wear your flowers.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make you one.
Oh. Yeah.
I don't know how, but I can YouTube it.
Yes, we can.
I'm really happy that you decided to come back and be a guest instead of
Yeah,
co-host.
Thank you.
a co-host.
Yeah.
And I think that what you talked about is going to reach a lot of people, and I'm proud of you.
Well, thank
and
you.
I love you, and I love both of you,
Me
and
too.
Rodrigo
Thank you.
too. But yeah, I think that wraps up today's awesome episode, and
Yeah.
we can't wait to see
Awesome.
you guys next time.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
It Begins With Us is a supporting podcast for 1614 Revival Foundation.
Please leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever possible. That really helps the show reach more people.
You can follow us on social media. The links are in the show notes. Do not hesitate to reach out. See you next time.